It was a hot midsummer afternoon, hanging out at the Biogeoscience Field Station in beautiful Kananaskis, home to the Îethka Nakota peoples alongside Blackfoot territory, more recently the Otempimisoak Métis. We were grateful to speak with Tessa Wolfleg and Savannah Hollander about the plant ancestors. We learned about what is a weed, the medicine of strawberries and its deep connection with women, the interesting story and medicinal uses of the plant awkwardly named white man's moccasins, how trains brought trees to this area, how maybe earthworms aren't the best for the soil, and of course, the dinosaur plants. So without further ado, Tessa and Savannah.
Okay, welcome to the Ancestral Science Podcast. Do you want to talk about where we are today and introduce yourselves in your own way?
Well, I'll tell you where we are.
Please.
We're at the beautiful barrier-like field station in Treaty 7, traditional territory of Îethka Nakota, Îethka Nakota people, also known as the best place on earth.
Absolutely.
Love it here.
With the mosquito and gopher ancestors.
Yeah, mosquitoes are definitely sucking my blood.
Tessa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Like you said, I'm Tessa. I'm Tessa Wolfleg. I'm from Siksika Nation. I'm currently going to the University of Calgary, and I'm in my last year. Graduated. Applied for graduation last week, and just like in our last podcast, I guess I'm the plant guy.
You were the plant guy.
I was the plant guy.
Yeah. Savannah, who are you?
Oh, I'm Savannah Hollander. I'm Cree, Métis, and German. My family comes from all over northern Alberta and Saskatchewan, but mostly like St. Paul area. Except I live in Calgary, city kid. I work here at the field station. I've worked here for the past almost 10 years, and I teach an ecology program to mostly high school students. Oh yeah, I also teach a first-year bio course for Indigenous students that want to stream into biology at U of C.
Nice.
So what are we going to do today? What should we do? How are we going to learn about Indigenous science today?
We're going to wander around, look at all the cool stuff around here, talk about all the cool plants, all the cool bugs.
Awesome.
There's innumerable cool things around here to talk about.
Explore and see where the road takes us.
The cool thing about bears, they have a prehensile lip, so they can like pluck the strawberry off and not destroy the rest of the plant.
Stop.
So that it can come back next year.
Stop.
Aren't they so special?
Oh,
Gentle kissers.
they must be good kissers.
I know.
I was like, oh, gentle kissers.
But strawberries are really cool, like totally ready to live in like this relatively harsh climate. They have this special bacteria on their leaves that, so if it starts to get cold or frosty, instead of the frost forming directly on the leaf and maybe like killing the leaf, because remember, like plant cells have like lots of water in them. If the cell wall breaks, they're like, rest in peace. So instead, the bacteria acts like a nucleus for ice to grow, so it grows slightly away from the leaf. And when Calgary had the Olympics, some people used this bacteria to figure out how to make snow.
What?
Because they were worried that there wasn't going to be snow when the Olympics happened. Because they might have been like a Chinook or something. So some scientists like figured out how to make snow from these strawberries.
Snow machines from the Do they taste like strawberries?
Yeah. So plants be teaching us.
Or the thing that I was always told about strawberries was that it was considered a woman's medicine. I was told this by an elder, and I was told that it could be used to help with like menstrual needs and stuff like that. So it was like a whole woman's medicine, from what I was told.
Is it just the berries, or is
it's the whole plant?
The whole plant.
I'm pretty sure that
the
can
roots
be used,
and the...
if I'm remembering correctly.
Cool.
They're very small though, but if you've ever had a wild strawberry,
oh,
it's like nothing else.
it is out of this world. Those strawberries that you get from the grocery stores can't
Nothing.
compare.
Don't compare at
I
all.
was just like, I could eat like handfuls of
Mhm.
wild strawberries.
And the bears do.
They do.
With their
do.
very delicate
The
lips.
They're very gentle
lips.
lips.
But I always think about that, like, because bears are kind of like big and like, boo, you know.
No, but they're so cuddly looking with
They're
their little
cute,
soft
but, like-
ears. They're cute but vicious.
But I just
like
think it's
you.
just so delicate and so cute that they're out here with their prehensile lip, just plucking the berry off to make sure that it comes back every year.
They're gentle
So they can have their
giants.
dinner next year.
Because they know. They know.
Mhm. They're gentle giants.
Wow.
I was just like, well, if you bug them, they're not gentle. But like,
No.
you know, they just live and do their own things in these trees, eating berries.
Bear. That's why it's called a berry. Bear.
Feel like they spelled berry wrong.
Yeah.
I've been spelling berry wrong my whole life. I have
True.
to change it.
Yep.
This is our public service announcement
Yep.
to change the spelling of berry.
Okay. Plantain, also known as white man's moccasin, is a non-native weed.
So it's called white man's moccasin because when settlers first came, they carried the seed on the bottom of their shoe.
Yeah, so humans are dispersing seeds.
Mhm.
That's bad, right? Is it bad?
Is it bad?
Again, kind of what we talked about with other things about like invasive plants and bad plants and
Yeah, well, even if we look at the trees that are around here, like usually, back in the day before the railroad was put in place, there wasn't this many trees in the area. A lot of these trees were kind of carried by the trains and kind of dispersed around here, because like this area and land that we're on was pretty much bare at the time, and I was just like, so it's like even these trees are invasive, but they help the ecosystem so much.
yeah, but also on that note, like this notion that untouched landscapes and static landscapes are the only good landscapes, and it seems to be what a lot of people think conservation is about. But landscapes and ecosystems are dynamic and always changing, and while the change in our lifetime might be like drastic and like emotional, that is part of this ecosystem's life, is to change over time, because ecosystems are responsive, you know? So this idea of conservation to be static is really...
Or to go back too, like a conference.
or to go
conservation,
back to something before people,
Yeah.
as if people are bad and somehow not part of this system is totally crazy. And look at this, humans, we're just dispersing seeds.
Yeah.
Of course we're part of the ecosystem.
It's just like how we in this world are like having to learn to adapt to like many new faces coming here to Canada. Well, like not only that, but like especially for like Indigenous people, like it's new to us having so many different races and people here, and it wasn't normal for us, but like, you know, we're learning to adapt to that, and it's just like our plants too. It's just like they're learning to adapt to like these new, I guess, invasive species. But you know, with time and stuff, I was just like, they're plants. They're not hurting anyone. Like they still serve a purpose at the end of the day. They still bring something to this land, and the world's always kind of changing.
Yeah, and like if we're trying to go back to some great wilderness ideal, when are we trying to go back to?
Yeah.
The last glacial period? Mammoths? Like, how do we decide what's good and what's bad, and what makes something wild, and how come people can't be part of that wildness? I guess.
Maybe we can go back to the giant sloths.
I wish. I wish. It'd be so sick. Kind of on what Tessa was saying, like a lot of ecologists that have been talking about like not necessarily increase in invasive species, rather like a loss of diversity in general is the problem. And like, where do non-native species fit in that like world of decreasing diversity because of the way that a lot of us have chosen to live. It's not really conducive to diversity in terms of an ecosystem. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're replanting all the same trees and plants, then there's going to be less diversity in the region. Right?
Yeah. I mean, just in the city, like all of the trees that live in the city are mostly non-native trees. And a lot of them are reaching the end of their life because they were all planted in like the 40s and 50s. And now they're all getting cut down. And I've been noticing that they get replaced by not very hardy tree species. Because like even though they were non-native, they're pretty hardy.
Yep.
And they're getting replaced by things like columnar aspen, my lifetime nemesis plant. I know you're not supposed to hate plants. I hate that tree. I hate that tree so much. No merit. It doesn't belong here. It doesn't want to stand. It's too windy, but it grows fast.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks bad.
Oh, it doesn't even look good?
No,
Of all the
it's those
things,
tall,
it's like-
skinny aspens that are in all the new builds. Because they cut down all the trees and they plant these non-native species that maybe last like
They're
20
like the
years.
privacy ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you could have this gorgeous tree instead. Beautiful spruce. But they take too long to grow.
I heard that a lot of the spruce are being cut down because in the 70s or 80s, you got like the little spruce tree in
grade
school.
3.
Yeah.
I got it in grade 3.
Yeah. And then you went and you planted it right next to the front door. And now, like 40 years later, it's at your front door.
Yep.
And you gotta cut it down.
You gotta think long term with trees.
Yep. Past a couple years that you're in school.
Yeah. Okay. Also invasive, not just plants, invasive creatures.
Invasive creatures.
Something no one ever thinks about that I'm on an eternal crusade about: earthworms. Everyone thinks earthworms are so good. I'm here to tell you, they're not. And here's why. They're non-native. They came on wagon wheels of settlers when they came out here from the East Coast. So before, the soil mixers in this area were these little tiny mites, and they didn't mix the soil very deep. So all the plants around here have evolved with like very shallow nutrient mixing in soils. And then earthworms show up, and they're way bigger. They go deep down the soil, mix it way deeper. So it's changing the soil profile. So it's changing the ability of wildflowers and like native plants to proliferate, which again creates soil that is maybe good for more non-native species. Really.
Remember when we went out and we talked to my uncle Adrian?
Yeah.
And then he was telling us about like it's people's lack of knowledge when it comes to them planting these plants.
Oh
in the
yeah.
area.
Yeah.
And you know, like you were saying, like a lot of these plants aren't made to stand like the weather here, and you see that with like a lot of trees in the area, not just like the aspens, I guess, but it's like a lot of trees, and a lot of them have short roots rather than long roots because I don't know why they have short roots.
Well, a lot of trees around here have like a tap
Yeah.
root, and then they'll have spreading roots
Yeah.
to get that shallow soil mixing across, but then also it's quite windy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
like
very
cottonwoods.
It's windy here.
It is down to like not understanding, because a lot of people don't understand the recursive nature of an ecosystem and what does a weed really mean, what does a native plant mean, and it's all down to like who's got time to learn all these things. And like urban planner people, city officials, they don't know either.
They don't know.
It's about money and what looks good. Or what doesn't look good. Like,
Yeah, it's about what grows fast.
Yeah.
Because what's that? There's like a proverb. I don't know where it came from. It's like plant. What is it? Plant trees even though you'll never sit in their shade.
Oh yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. I probably botched it.
Unless
But
unless you get a fast-growing tree, and then you can.
yeah, but
Then
I
you
think
can until the wind comes.
I think like getting people on a different track about plants is like would be great.
Yeah.
Talking about lawns, talking about like your backyard diversity, talking about what trees are appropriate to grow here and where to plant them and how to plant them and how to care for them. And I know the city of Calgary like tries to do that, but the trees they give away for free are not good either. So I don't know. But then what? Do you just have no trees
Exactly.
in the city? What's worse? I'd rather have a columnar aspen than nothing. Ancient plant.
So we're talking about
Horsetail.
ancient plants.
Yeah.
Awesome ancient plants.
a lot of people think plants, they don't think about plant evolution, and plant evolution is like one of the coolest things ever.
How's it different from human evolution?
Well, they have a lot of different methods of reproduction compared to human, or like, compared to animals. And they have so many different life ways and like different structures. Like you think of like moss, like a bryophyte, really early plant like this guy. But they reproduce in a much different way than something like a spruce tree, which is like one of the first trees. And then the spruce tree reproduces much differently than a flowering plant or a deciduous tree. And obviously these pieces don't fossilize well, so it's hard to recreate that timeline, but it's really cool. And it's also really cool to think about like how it's not a metaphor, it's like real that these things are our ancestors in some fashion. Because like if you go all the way back to fossil evidence, we have like the first evidence of life we have is a photosynthetic bacteria, and that's literally your like oldest grandfather. And every single living thing on earth came from that somehow.
And that's in connection with how we say all my relations.
Yeah,
we're all connected. We're all
literally
right?
all my relations. So we're literally entwined in this circle with all these living things. It's not hippie woo woo like it's real.
It's real ancestors.
It's real ancestors. Yeah. Just a long time ago.
Yeah. And it's very different looking at, humans alongside plants, trees, animals, everything within the circle being the same versus this hierarchical perspective.
Like ultimately we all have the exact same DNA, like building blocks.
Yeah.
That's how you know that we're all related to these things. It's right. It's all right there.
Yeah. And then even if we did look at it like hierarchical. That's a tough word, guys. There's a lot of ers in it. But if we look at it like as a hierarchy, like humans ourselves, like we're so pitiful. Like if we didn't have the plants, if we didn't have the animals, we wouldn't have shelter and we wouldn't have food. We wouldn't have any means of living or anything like that. So it's just like everything around us is essentially like above us. Like even though we may be on the same level and stuff, without these things on this earth, we wouldn't be here.
And I think vice versa is also true.
Yeah.
Like we are beholden to all these things and we have responsibilities to these other things that we live in concert with on earth. But we also provide them with care. It's like we have pets and we do a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
Collectively. But we do a lot of good things.
But like at the same time too, like, they care for us, we care for them. It's just I think sometimes we just kind of get lost in our ways.
Yeah.
It's just like sometimes we get into our heads a bit too much.
I think it's hard for humans because we've come so far technologically so quickly that we're still inside hunter-gatherer brains. And like the things that served us well when we were whatever doing our thing out there don't necessarily serve us well now with the problems that we face. This is way off topic. But just like with anything, evolution is going to happen, and we're going to have like these moments where we maybe change how we interact with where we live, because
look at how this horsetail changed.
it was once a tree.
It was once a tree.
She adapted.
Yeah, we're talking about change all day today.
Yeah, that's I think that's like the theme of life is change.
Change.
And humans are afraid of change because it was scary.
in the past, and it meant it was literally life or death in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Also, like rocks. Ever heard of rocks? Related to rocks.
Rocks are lovely. Love them.
This gorgeous mountain behind us is made of a rock called limestone, which is actually made up of the little hard bits and shells of Cambrian sea creatures, which are some of the first animal life we have evidence for on Earth. So all their little shells got crushed, millions and millions of years, pressure, turn into a rock. Okay, so is that rock living? Is it non-living? Is it dead? Is it none of the above? And then those are the rocks you use when you go into ceremony. And that's your oldest grandfather. And like, that's not a metaphor either. It literally is. So I think this like separation between the spiritual and the scientific is like obviously a false dichotomy. And we've always used metaphor in science, whether it be Western or indigenous. It's just used in a different way.
And even looking at what is animate, what is inanimate. It's not, it's creating this dichotomy that's not really there.
Yeah.
I heard Robin Wall Kimmerer is advocating for a new word for like an animate life form, like rocks. That's not like human or animal, but like rocks and trees to be key or kin, which I love.
I talk about this kind of stuff with kids a lot, like how we are so prone to like organizing things into little boxes. And it's really important when you're in school to learn the boxes. But then when you get out of school, you learn that like those boxes are just for us to understand, to simplify things. But you have to learn that those boxes are permeable and dynamic, and some things don't fit in those boxes. And yes, you can use it as like a learning tool, but that's not the final say. And I think that's like a huge problem in science education. And I don't think that there is really, this might be controversial. Like, I feel like I have an ecology background, so it's a little bit different than some other sciences, but I feel like what I learned about in my ecology courses and what I learned about from just being with my family on the land, it's the same thing. It's just a different language. It's not different. And I don't think there is this huge difference necessarily. I think the difference is how you interact with the knowledge.
And if you interact with it,
yeah,
it's often that distance that's placed between you and the topic or what you're speaking
about,
the animal or the tree. There's often a distance. You're either in a lab or you're on the land.
Yeah,
I think it's you create those relationships. That's more.
Yeah. And I think like, here's my pitch for ecologists. Ecologists are like uniquely placed because they do the lab stuff and they do the land-based stuff.
Yeah.
And I was reading something about some ecologists were wondering why these whales would only swim up some river mouths from the ocean and not others. And they went out into community and they're like, what the heck's going on? We can't, like, salmon are in both of these rivers. Why aren't they following them everywhere? And they went and talked to some people who lived out there. So I think it was somewhere on the East Coast. Maybe they were Mi'kmaq or something. But they said, well, there's beavers in this river and not in this river. And they only swim up the rivers that didn't have beavers in them. And they were like, oh, obviously. So it's all there, man. It's all there.
So how did you get into this work that you do? How did you get into the work of looking at science through a more relational, connected lens?
For me, I got into this back in like 2020, 2021 when I worked here with Savannah at BGI. And
that's where you met?
And that's where I met both of you guys. Both you and Savannah. But I got into it. It wasn't something that I was looking to get into. It was just summer and I was just like, oh, don't got a job. Done school. Need some way to make money. And so I applied to a couple places and they wanted me here. She looks like she got some jokes up her sleeve.
And then I came here, and then the first year I worked here, it was during the pandemic. So I think a lot of the time I was at Savannah's house, and we did we worked on a program at that time based around indigenous plants. I've always kind of had like an interest when it came to plants and stuff around my community, just because it was something I was raised and brought up in from my grandparents, especially my grandpa. And it was something that I carried with me my entire life, but I never really spoke on it until like I really started working here. And then the next year, that's when I met Corey, and I came back here, and I think the second time around, I think I really came out of my shell, and then I think I showed a lot more of my skills and stuff in this kind of I guess like area of study. I don't know. But yeah, it wasn't something I was planning to get into. It was just something I kind of stumbled into, and I was just like, "Oh, hey, cool. This is kind of cool." It was cool because a lot of what I talked about um relating to my culture fit into a lot of the science that we were talking about around the area. And with that, I just kind of took off um with what I learned, and I did a lot of other cool science things, and now I'm here. Now I'm here, and a lot of my work now, since I work with a lot of, I guess, youth, and I try to employ youth, a lot of it now is just like opening up their like minds and stuff to kind of jobs such as this, just because a lot of the people who I work with are indigenous, and then it's just like you can get a job that you like, that you think is fun, and that you can relate to a lot more. Because I didn't know, because before this I did a lot of jobs that were kind of more, I was just like, I did housekeeping. Yeah, I was a maintenance worker there for a bit, did some forestry. um I was just like, did Stampede for like 3 years, and it was jobs just because I needed a job. And it wasn't until I started working here at BGI where I was just like, no, work can be fun. Work can be something where you're just like, okay, I want to go in every day just because, I have this and this on my mind, and like I want to, I could show it. I could show it. And, I think now my work is just like showing them that, a lot of these indigenous youth have the potential and have the brain and knowledge to do work like this. And so, indigenous excellence is one thing that I always really push for in my strain of work. Yeah.
How did you get into this?
It's been a long road.
It's been a long road.
I was like, when I was a kid, I was like a, free range kind of bush kid.
Free range chicken, laying my eggs outside of the chicken hutch.
It's been a long time.
I spent a lot of time outside when I was a kid, and I was always like, yeah, that's fine. I never really thought that I could play outside as a job. Turns out you can. And I never really thought I'd go to university either, because I didn't do very well in school. In fact, I did very bad. But I always liked science. I always liked learning about science, especially like biology and like plants, especially. And I always really resonated with ecology because it just seemed like second nature to me from being outside all the time and like learning from my family and all the people that they associated with. And then I moved away to Vancouver, and I was like, well, I can't work in a dry cleaners forever. Because it sucked. And I was like, I'm going to go to university. So I moved back home, and I was originally in health sciences because it was like back in the day when I went to school.
Tell me more, Coco.
My nation was like, okay, we'll fund you if you do education or healthcare or social work.
And I was like,
Mm.
well, okay, I guess. So I was like, I'll do like health science. Huge mistake. Hated it.
Mm.
And I took an ecology class and I was like, oh yeah, this is sick. And I switched. I still paid for it though, because I started out in health science.
The system. Hell yeah.
I think things have probably changed now. It's not so
Mhm.
rigid, but like at the time, I didn't really know what university was. No one in my family even graduated high school. So I didn't really know what I was getting into. Then I got an ecology degree and I was like, this is it. This is the door that I want to go through to like put together this kind of like, I guess it is spiritual, like being outside. And it's not in like it's not really profound. I don't think spiritual things have to be profound. It just is like something that's good for your spirit is spiritual. And putting those two things together, like science and this like spiritual thing, was really cool. And then I was lucky enough to get a job here teaching this ecology program because I worked for the government for a while, and that was fine, I guess. But then I was like, I don't know. And then I started working here and I was teaching kids about trees and science and playing outside. If you had told me I was going to be a teacher when I was in high school, I would have been like, you're crazy. I hate school and I hate teachers. I became what I hated.
But everyone loves you.
Some people. Yeah. And I did that. And then I went back to school and got a teaching degree on top of it. So I can just do it all. It was, yeah. Cool. Get to marry my two favorite things is science and yapping.
And spirituality, which
And
is
spirituality.
kind of what I was going to ask about. Is there been a moment in your journey to get here that was really a moment, like an aha moment, that you realized the depth of science within like indigenous knowledges or these knowledges of the land?
It was actually kind of recently when I was preparing to teach my course. I was the basis of the course is about evolution and how evolution like kind of undergirds everything in biology. Nothing makes sense without evolution. And so I was doing a little deep dive on like these things, and I was like, oh, this is literally my ancestor, this worm, this like horsetail, or this tree. Like all my relations is not a metaphor. That's when I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. That's what it is for everybody.
Yeah.
Like not just indigenous people, everybody everywhere. And I don't know. It was like, it seemed so obvious at the time. I was like, I can't believe I didn't even realize it before, because like, duh. That was my
So
big.
easy, but so complex.
Yeah. It's kind of esoteric.
Yeah. Tessa, how about you?
I think I'll be like, I too just had a real recent aha moment during one of the classes I took during, I think it was spring. It was like a block week course. And I think this wasn't only like a aha moment for like science and stuff. It was just, in a sense too, it was just kind of because I'll be like, not gonna lie, I was feeling kind of like disconnected from my culture for like a little bit there. I was just like for a little bit, like I was like over here questioning like a lot of things pertaining to my culture, and then a lot of things that, and a lot of the work that I've done over the last couple of years. And we went down to Blackfoot Crossing Historical Park for our school field trip. And I was just like, you know what? I've been here 1,000 times. We're always here in high school. I was just like, I'm not gonna learn anything here. And that's how I went into it. I went into thinking I've been here before, like I've done this. And I was just like, I don't know. I don't think I'll learn anything on this whole entire trip. And then on that trip, we learned about our people's history, like through the dog days, when the horses came, to the signing of the trees. And then throughout that whole time too, we were talking about the plants and how we lived and how we survived and the whole science behind like a lot of things. And they were just like science, and then they were just like, we have a whole bunch of like schools come out to kind of like look at how we did things back in the day, because a lot of it was like real scientific and stuff. One of the coolest thing I think I seen on that entire trip was they had this whole dugout. This was like before like pots and stuff were things, and they used to use, I think it was like the inside, like the stomach of the buffalo or something like that, or like the hide of the buffalo, and they would dig a hole and they would put the hide in there, and then they would put water in there, and then they would boil rocks and put the rocks in there, and then it would boil the water, and that's how we would like get boiling water and like would make like, and that's how like we could make stews and stuff back in the day. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like how in like how do you even think about that? And then I was sitting there and I was thinking, and I was just like, you know, our people hold so much knowledge and so many things that can be related and tied to science, and it's usually oftentimes overlooked. And I was just like, you know, our way of living, our way of life is science.
Like everyone, like that's like
everyone.
problem solving is science.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at how we tan hides, you have to understand like the biology of skin and what part needs to come off, and what it should look like, what it should feel like, and that the brain has these properties that are going to make it waterproof.
Yeah.
Like,
and that perfect ratio of like the size of the brain to the size of the animal.
You're not just like out there being like, oh, well, hope this works. Like this was the scientific method, trial and error, and seeing what happens. And like a big thing that when I am talking to kids is like, mistakes are part of the process.
Yeah.
That it's built into the process. If you didn't make a mistake, well, you did make a mistake because you didn't make a mistake. It's wrong.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it's like this kind of thinking about science in this way is beneficial for Indigenous people or Indigenous youth, in that they will become empowered to be in that world, because it is really alienating world for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, but especially for Indigenous students. But this is beneficial for every kid, every non-academic kid, to see that like, even if you're not good at math or you can't memorize all this stuff, you can still do science. You still be part of that process.
That memorization, standardization aspect of math and science.
It's a very small part of it.
Very small part, and that's absolutely that relational piece of like being in it and doing it and exploring, like problem solving, like you're saying. That's everyone can do that. Everyone should be doing that. And understanding that is science.
Yeah. And like I notice sometimes when you hear about people talking about Indigenous science, sometimes it can come across as kind of adversarial almost.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right either. That's not the point. It's not. It just serves to like further divide people. And if I've learned anything about science, is that the more different voices you have telling these stories, the more complete our understanding of the way the world works becomes. And like, if that's not spiritual, I don't know what is. Like I saw this quote. It was like, understanding the world is understanding God. But if you put it into a different perspective, like understanding the world is understanding creation, is understanding yourself, is understanding creator. And that's like the most spiritual thing you can do.
On that note, so grateful for these conversations today and for having us out here on this beautiful land. So
love to have you out here, Corey. Love to hang out with you.
So much. Do like that. Good job, lady.